Morning, everyone, and welcome to the April edition of the HR Buddy HR and Employment Law Update. I can see lots of attendees just coming in now, so just bear with us for a few moments, folks, and we'll give everyone an opportunity to join in, and we'll get started. Okay, so you're all very welcome this morning, and thanks for joining us. HR Buddy, of course, is an Irish-based HR consultancy, payroll, and software HR software company, and I'm joining you this morning from the Killarney offices. However, of course, at HR Buddy, we work nationally to deliver flexible HR solutions to companies of all sizes and across many sectors, as well as supporting overseas companies with EOR services. And today, as I said, you're joining us for the April installment of our HR Update series. However, if you want to stay up to date with the latest developments in the HR space, you can sign up to our monthly newsletter mailing list. You can see our contact details on the screen below, and I'll pop up a link later so you can connect with us and stay informed on all things HR and employment law. Now, for today's discussion, we are going to delve into a topic that I think is universal across all organizations, and I would say probably the points for discussion here apply not just in business life, but in our personal lives as well, in terms of dealing with difficult conversations. And I'm glad to say for this, we're joined by HR Buddy's own Managing Director, Damien McCarthy. Good morning, Damien.
Morning, Colin. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
And today we're also going to address some very timely updates in the HR space. And I'm glad to say we're joined by our colleague and HR buddy business partner, Breach Fallon. Morning, Breach.
Hi, everybody.
And look, with National Workplace Wellbeing Day being just 2 weeks away now, we're also going to briefly discuss the latest developments regarding our HR software solution, HR Buddy Manager, and our renewed focus on employee well-being within the platform. And we'll have some time at the end today for questions and answers on the topics discussed this morning. So, with that being said, I'll now hand over to Damien.
Thanks, Colin. Good morning again, everyone. I'll just start my stopwatch here because I have a tendency to run over time in these things and then Breach and Collins give out to me at the end. So I want to avoid that. So I'm going to be discussing from avoidance to action. I think one of the big trends in the last number of years, and most certainly in my experience in HR consultancy, I can think of loads of examples where a client would ring you. They would be venting their frustration over performance or behavioral issues with a particular employee. They would run through the examples, and after 5 or 10 minutes of listening to them and trying to understand the situation, I would ask the question, have you had a conversation with the employee about this? And about 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. There's a tendency to avoid hard conversations. As Colin there mentioned, even in our personal lives, we do this. I claim to be no expert in personal relationships, so let me make that very clear from the outset. But I have experience in the workplace, and it's one of the big issues because when feedback conversations, those conversations between managers and workers are avoided, it can turn toxic. It can become silent. I suppose there's a lot of game playing, and eventually, when it is dealt with, it's an awful lot bigger. It costs more time, it costs more money, and it causes more trouble. So, if you just want to click ahead there, Colin, we'll get into this a bit more. Now, I suppose what's key is, are we having everyday conversations with our staff? That's one of the key things. Are the communication channels open? And I think especially with remote work and the fact that there is more remote and hybrid work now, there is those gaps. So that is also something that you have to be aware of. I suppose in the old days, everyone met in a workplace. There was more ongoing communication, everyday conversations between managers and their workers. So we have to realize as well, it is more difficult, and we do have to work at these things and make sure that there isn't gaps in communication and in relationships as well. But why are difficult conversations so difficult? When the conversation begins, and this is a key thing, triggers can compete with understanding. I suppose the mistake that can be made is that when you deliver feedback to an individual, it's a personal characteristic trait of them to react in a negative way, to become defensive. And it actually isn't. If you start a serious conversation with anyone that's on this webinar this morning, or anyone in general, naturally they will become defensive. Body language is one of the key things. You will see emotion in the eyes, the eye area, straight away, the facial expression, and also the body expression. So they may become uptight. You'd see emotion coming to their face and so on. It's very important to realize that it's a natural human instinct. There's that threat detection. So we can be triggered by perceived criticism, feeling confronted, judged, and then there's the loss of control or uncertainty. And I suppose especially when we're not doing regular feedback, regular conversations, regular communications on the standards, on the team standards, on the organizational standards, these things can build up, and eventually when they're confronted, it becomes more serious. The person can become more defensive and so on. And then you're really kind of the other mistakes that can be made then is, fighting fire with fire. So, everything goes downhill from there. But it's to realize that anytime a serious conversation is had or an issue is being addressed, we as humans, I suppose, enact that threat detection button. Flight, feed, fight response. So they're automatic responses, not personal resistance, and that's important. We all tend to do this. It's a natural reaction. It happens in milliseconds before rational thought can intervene. And that's why the start of conversations in these types of situations are very important. I suppose if you want to think of the sandwich effect, when you're writing a letter and might be delivering something, a message that might not be well received, you sandwich it with pleasantries at the start and pleasantries at the end. You reaffirm the value to the person and so on, and all the positive sides of your relationship. But there is news to be delivered, and that must be delivered in the middle of that letter. It's the same when you go to a meeting with someone. If the start of the meeting goes wrong, you can expect a very defensive reaction. You could expect maybe even aggression and so on. I'd make another point on line manager training. We deliver a lot of line manager training to our clients and to new clients. I think line manager training is one of the most important, the most valuable training sessions you can do with your line managers. Because if two people go into a room and they're discussing an issue and the line manager gets it wrong, it can be a disaster. If the line manager gets it right, communicates in the right way, can read body language, and kind of take that meeting kind of like that, where it goes up, you need to bring it back down, just get it leveled again. The line manager needs that expertise. And if the line manager goes in with aggression or with poor communication, again, it's very important because there is going to be issues in the workplace. You do have to, I suppose, reaffirm standards on a daily and a weekly basis. You have to realize that teams may not all be working together these days. You have remote and hybrid working, people working out on site and all that type of thing. So we live in and are experiencing a much more mixed up world of work now. So these conversations are very important, that they're done more regular, and that we don't leave things build up. So one of the key tips we have here is that when anger, embarrassment, or defensiveness rise, people stop listening fully and start protecting themselves instead. So again, the start of that meeting, if you put someone on the back foot, they become defensive, they stop listening, It's the kind of the flight response or the attack response, and I suppose you're digging a hole. The triggers for the person sitting there, the employee listening to the issue, is opinion, self-image, and relationship are three key things for them. So their opinion may be this is wrong and it's unfair. Self-image, this feedback saying something bad about me, it's impacting my reputation. And then the relationship, of course, with the person who's delivering this message and having this conversation with them. Who are you to tell me this? And you will get an awful lot of that in these circumstances, where employees will feel that there's pressure from the top to do this, that they're looking to make an example of me, that the attack response is that, the line manager shouldn't be in that position. They're not competent. They don't know what they're doing. I know better, and all that type of thing. So the start of these meetings is very, very important. Reading body language and communicating in a positive way, and not forgetting about the human side of how you communicate with someone. If you just move it on there again, Colin. So avoidance, we often avoid difficult conversations for reasons that may feel kind but make things worse. And again, I think this is another thing that is happening in an awful lot of workplaces. You have line managers or employers or whoever the direct report is to employees, avoiding conversations that would be seen as anywhere critical or negative or hard to approach. And we all avoid difficult conversations. Again, that's a natural. Why would anyone want to have a difficult conversation? It's natural that we would try and avoid it. So we get the silence thing. People may choose to postpone the conversation because conflict feels too costly, which is a reasonable thing to think. Why have conflict? We see misplaced empathy, so sparing short-term feelings by not saying what needs to be said, even when that harms growth. I think we've seen this in particular in the last few years as well, because we've had a tight labour market. We've had an awful lot of workplaces, they don't want to lose people. They can't afford to have someone, going out sick, leaving them, handing in their notice. So an awful lot of line managers are scared to have the conversations with staff because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They also don't want to I suppose, draw attention to themselves as the line manager or the people manager, direct report of the staff. You have the mix up of remote work that has come into it, whereby you may even have line managers working remotely. And if they're dealing with performance or behavioural issues or competency issues with staff, will someone over them ask the question about remote and hybrid working? Are we being too flexible, and so on? So you get line managers as well, maybe not wanting to upset the apple cart, but long term, that's costly. It's not an effective way of managing, and it costs more time and more money down the line, which leads you to feedback debt. I think that little point down at the bottom of that slide is probably my favorite little piece from what I'm doing in my presentation this morning. Feedback debt. So when issues are not addressed, they accumulate. The eventual conversation becomes harder or more emotionally charged. I suppose the good thing about this is every single one of us has had a difficult conversation, be it in the workplace or be it in our personal lives. And we know that silence and avoiding it and building it up just leads to a bigger blowout, a bigger bust up, more serious conversation down the line that can be met with an awful lot more defensiveness, an awful lot more emotionally charged passion, where people aren't thinking straight and say things, that they would later regret, and so on. The idea is that you don't build up feedback that your feedback is ongoing, daily, weekly, addressing the standards as a line manager in a calm manner on an ongoing basis with your staff. If you or your organization or you as a line manager feel that this isn't an area in which you're competent or could do better, please feel free to contact us because line manager training. And this morning it's a presentation. I'm probably speaking for about 20 minutes on this topic. A training session on this where you can really get into it with line managers and the culture of the organization in the training session. I think is really worthwhile training. So avoiding the issue protects harmony. And also your own anxiety because it isn't just the worker who may feel anxious around this. It is, of course, the person who's having the conversation with them, the line manager as well. But the issue remains if we and trust weakens as well, and the misconversation now becomes even heavier. So we're getting back to the feedback that thing there. A difficult conversation is rarely only about the issue itself. It is also about feeling, status, competence, and whether the person still feels respected while hearing something uncomfortable. Okay, so Colin, you just roll it on there again. Okay, so how do we take action? So I suppose acknowledge that all development requires discomfort. There's a quote there, which we like. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot have both. Okay. If you choose comfort, that's one way to go, but you build up that feedback debt, which is more costly down the line. So empathy is needed. And all line managers having these conversations or people managers delivering feedback, whether it's on a regular or ongoing basis or whether they do make the mistake of leaving it build up, empathy is always needed. There can always be reasons why someone isn't performing competently, if maybe something that goes back to their personal lives and so on. And if you value an employee, you will always be able to afford them empathy. But in these conversations, honesty is also needed. So you can't confuse an employee by just concentrating on the empathy part of it and being that soft people manager. You still need to deliver the message. Again, probably one of the standout little nuggets of information from this presentation this morning is steadiness is needed. I love this little piece because the manager must stay grounded, calm, and the last bit there is curious. The line manager must appear interested in the person that's sitting across from them. They must work with them to find actions moving forward, to make sure that they understand the conversation, that actions can be taken afterwards, that they're approaching these conversations whereby the person sitting across from them feels valued, that they're helping them, supporting them in dealing with the issue, not attacking them. I suppose line managers staying grounded, again, the start of these difficult conversations, the person across from you becomes defensive, maybe can go aggressive on it, maybe even can go nuclear on it. We've dealt with plenty of examples of that as well. But how the line manager then reacts, if they go in and attack back, again, maybe it's curtains in the relationship. Line managers must stay grounded. They must know and admit that it is a difficult conversation. They must know and admit that the best thing to do is to address it and not avoid it. And they must know and admit that there is a threat of discomfort, and I suppose of maybe even aggression or attack coming from the person that they're delivering the message to. A key tip is people often worry about coming across too mean, but it can often be kinder in the long run to be more direct. The key is that it's done in the right way. So like a very difficult, hard communication, when it's delivered in the wrong way, without empathy, without sandwiching it, without that kind of human empathy and making the employee feeling valued. If it's not done in that way, again, it can become nuclear. We'll move ahead, Colin, again, please. Okay, so our feedback framework, and again, I suppose quickly, I'm running through this this morning. These are some of the things that we would work on in a training session, um, in a much more meatier fashion. But prepare well, so prepare examples, know the facts, and the purpose of the conversation. So again, don't confuse an employee. You should avoid confusing an employee or giving mixed messages. What outcome do I want for the person, the work, and the relationship going forward? So there's an outcome for the employee as well. That's what's important. Um, Also, I suppose, like in preparing, make sure that you have your stats, your facts as a line manager, and that you can back yourself up. I suppose going in talking off the top of your head, you need to be able to back this up with evidence, and that's why, particular this day and age, like we have the HR Buddy Manager software. So if you're talking about attendance issues, absenteeism, and so on, or you're afraid that something is going to be thrown at you, which often happens, I wasn't trained in that area and so on. Have you got that documented? Is it at a touch of a button inside in a HR SaaS software like HR Buddy Manager? These kind of tools help line managers and they help employers to have the facts at their fingertips. So it's always worth something. It's always worth considering. Otherwise, you can always be accused of kind of hearsay, or it's a personal attack on me and your facts aren't correct and so on. If you can deliver that, it helps you deliver the facts. Open well and explore. So reduce defensiveness early. Listen, remain curious, and test your own assumptions. So saying things like, I'm raising this because I want to help you succeed and because the issue matters, rather than coming across as some sort of personal, aggressive attack where you're speaking to a bold child kind of thing in the old-fashioned way. You need to be purposeful and direct. So again, you don't want to confuse the employee, and you do have to deal with the meat of the issue. Describe the behaviour, what happened, and avoid unhelpful labels. So again, mistakes can be made there where, words like misconduct are used and so on, and people get defensive and they think it's turned into something disciplinary now, when you're just having an everyday informal conversation with regards to the competence or the performance of one individual. And ask open-ended questions. So very important in any meeting, whether it's formal and informal, that there's a two-way conversation happening, and that the person sitting across from you can talk to you, can give their opinion, and that it is a conversation. Okay, Colin, we move ahead. So impact, build a shared picture of the issue, including patterns of behaviour and your expectations. Explain the effect on the team, quality standards, and the customer, the client. So it's important to make the individual aware of this and get that across to them in a calm manner. Actions, and this is important as well, it's important to leave these meetings, we're talking about the other side of these meetings now, I suppose, that you have actions and that you've agreed to them with the person, that we both know what's happening and what we're doing going forward here. We know what's happening when we're in here tomorrow morning and the following day. These are our actions, and not just that they are taking action, but that you're taking action as well and supporting them in doing that. And that's important. Focus forward, so focus on improving the next attempt rather than replaying the failure too much. So it's important to move forward. You've had that difficult conversation now, well done. Okay, that's fantastic. But now it's about following it up with positive actions and moving forward. So the mistakes that can be made as well, where you're having another meeting next week or in a month's time with the same employee, and you're still going back talking about what the problem was in the first place. So you're moving on now in helping and supporting them, to getting them to the right place and supporting them moving forward with those positive actions and follow up. So if you have a difficult conversation, you always need to follow up. I'm sure we've all had difficult conversations again in the workplace or in our personal or family lives. You always have to follow up. And I suppose having one difficult conversation, parking it there, and not admitting to yourself that there is a secondary conversation and a follow-up to be done here. Yes, it's not easy, but don't avoid that one either. It's important for the follow-up. Okay, Colin. So when delivering the message, it's very important. Remember, expect defensiveness. It's naturally going to happen, and work with it, not against it. Acknowledge the triggers, slow it down. Okay, put things on pause, slow things down. And again, I go back to kind of, where you're in a meeting with a person and you feel it's going that way. You just need to bring it back down maybe again for a while and pause, keep it calm. And then you can start making your point again, and you're trying to keep it calm. It's a skill. And maybe it's a skill that you or the people in your workplace need to be trained in and have a better understanding of. And what signals are you noticing? So going back to what I was saying at the start, being aware of body language. A lot like when you go into an interview and you see the person's nervous, you're just not going to get the best of them. I just find it's best to tell them there's no point being nervous because I'm not nervous. So just relax because we want to just have a conversation here this morning. And you just see the shoulders just relax and they sit back in their chair. And now you have the real person. And you want to do that in any conversation that you're having with anyone, no matter how serious it is in any walk of life. You want the real person. You don't want the aggressive person who's defensive. So did the conversation go as planned? Was the intention clear? Was the next step understood? And always remember the next step. We keep going, Colin. So informal performance management. You move it ahead there, Colin, to the meat of it. Informal performance management tools. If we can do informal performance management, it is obviously always better than formal performance management. When you avoid conversations, much bigger chance that you're dealing with the time cost and the stress and everything else of formal performance management. So if you like, you want to avoid formal performance management. So how can you do it as a manager or as an employer? Number one, get your HR documentation right. Okay. Make sure you've got documentation that stands up, that it isn't a mess, that it's clearly understood, that it's in place, that you have job descriptions, contracts of employment, and up-to-date staff handbooks. That it can't be thrown back at you that I haven't been trained or I wasn't told that. So effective onboarding from day one, training on policies and in induction procedures and practices is very important because it's the number one excuse from a poor performing employee that it's the employer's fault or the manager's fault. They weren't trained or they weren't developed properly. Again, I would suggest having technology in place such as HR Buddy Manager because it just helps you to do this efficiently and more cost effectively. Probation reviews, it's an area that's constantly being neglected still to this day. So scheduled check-ins to coach, document performance and build that culture where people understand the standards in your organization. Get that right from day one with induction and probation reviews. Again, probation reviews are another example of difficult conversations sometimes that are avoided and people are busy and they get missed. And we see it all the time. It's a mistake. On-the-job coaching, very important. Records of discussion. So again, if you move into formal and you've done the informal and you don't have the records of discussion, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So everything needs to be documented. We go on online meetings now and automatically there's technology in the background recording our conversations. Some people don't like that, but recording conversations, documenting them, the cardinal sin is not doing that in performance management. Document taking or note taking and recording conversations, it doesn't make it formal, but it backs you up and it's fair to everyone if things escalate down the line, and it's fair to the employee as well. Saves time, saves costs, trust me. Performance improvement plans and annual reviews. So again, to get avoided in some organizations, time is usually the excuse. I would think that maybe people avoiding difficult conversations again, but performance improvement plans, I suppose, are a very positive tool again if done directly or done properly. Breach is going to give an example in employment law a little later on with regards to performance improvement plans, and it's a very interesting piece of case law. Okay, sorry, Colin, if you just click ahead there again. Okay, so the benefits of informal performance management, and again, we always try to stay informal. Again, have your documentation in order and your company policies with regards to this, because if you can stay informal, it can have very impactful, successful results where it prevents escalation. It allows, I suppose, a boost of engagement. It allows people to have the difficult conversations and the serious conversations on a more ongoing basis without things kind of getting too serious and formal and so on. Remember, build records. That's important. Your documentation is key. But if one of the key points is it's cost effective. So time and resources required in implementing PIPs or formal procedures, a lot of time and an awful lot of cost. And indeed, an awful lot of stress for different individuals and different parties as well. And it shows a genuine attempt to improve compliance and performance. So the key tip is prevent escalation, enhance engagement in those conversations, and demonstrate genuine improvement efforts through proactive and positive coaching. Okay, Colin. We're not moving, but we're moving on to the formal side of it. There it is. Thank you. So informal attempts at resolution documented, again, to be clear on that, the opportunity to improve provided that you can show that the formal procedure was used as the last resort. Steps in formal procedure adhered to fully. We come across an awful lot of examples of that as well. And again, sometimes it's where a client comes to us and the procedures are poor, badly written, and they're just getting themselves entangled up in rope. So that you have a good procedure. And again, if you need reviews of handbooks and policies or anything like that, feel free to contact the team at HR Buddy. The Code of Practice on Grievance and Disciplinary Procedures states that details must be given to all employees upon commencement and should be included in employee programs of induction and refresher training. Okay, so points to remember on the left with regards to formal, if it goes formal, the huge one is principles of natural justice. Okay, and it's to remember that. And I suppose we work an awful lot in investigations, on disciplinary panels and so on, with our investigation team here in HR Buddy. It's timely. It costs an awful lot of stress, costs an awful lot of time and so on. So again, getting those conversations into your everyday practices. If you need training on it, we're here to help you. But it's to avoid these kind of costly formal performance management scenarios. But if you're there, if you're in the middle of a formal performance management process, the principles of natural justice is the key thing. The right to know the case, right to respond, right to representation, separation of process. So that's people not involved in different stages of the investigation, disciplinaries and appeal processes and so on. The right to appeal, obviously, and that you can show reasoned decision making. And again, if you're in a formal process and you need help, the team at HR Buddy are experts in that. That's my bit for this morning. I'm going to pass you over to Breach Fallon. As I said, in about 25 minutes, it's very difficult to get through all of this. So if you feel that you would like line manager training or it's something that you want to suggest to your team, we'd be very happy to speak with you. But for the moment, thank you. And I think, Colin, we're going over to Breach now.
Yeah, so like I said, there's a huge amount of information there, and as you pointed out, that I guess to dig into those, because it goes to the absolute core of management and day-to-day coaching, that we do workshops on those topics and dig into much deeper. We'll share the slides and so on from today as well, so people will get a flavour of the tools that are available. But business managers and owners can reach out to us if they want to dig into these and build those skills within their business as well. So that was fantastic. And as you said, I guess now we'd like to switch gears and focusing on the day-to-day updates in the ever-evolving world of HR and employment law. So with that being said, I'd like to hand over to our HR business partner, Breach Fallon, to take us through it.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to take you through some slides on attendance in light of the recent fuel shortages and travel disruption that we've seen in the last week. We had an awful lot of calls to HR Buddy with clients and non-clients and people ringing up with some issues with employees not being able to attend work. And they didn't know how to respond or what to do. So we thought it was relevant to today's topic and to add in a few slides that you might be able to take away something from. So like if you have employees not attending work due to having no fuel or travel disruption, delays, or even protesting, it's important that you handle these issues correctly and in line with policies and procedures. So I'll take you down through some scenarios there now, but travel disruption and fuel shortages may impact the employee's ability to attend work or arrive on time. So employers should take a practical and reasonable approach when balancing operational needs. So the key considerations that we have here in the slide are saying that the employee should notify their manager as early as possible if they're impacted, and travel and fuel disruption does not automatically entitle employees to pay. So this is the most important thing that I'll go through in these few slides. There is no entitlement to be paid just because they can't come to work because of the travel or the fuel disruptions. So there are a range of options open to employees that can't travel for these reasons, such as remote working. So you may have employees already set up to work from home. And if you do, then it will be good to facilitate that and allow them to work from home where possible. If employees perhaps weren't set up to do that, maybe they're a van or they're drivers or they have meetings out on site and the road was blocked or they had no fuel and they can't go, they're not working from home employees, for example. You could allow them to take annual leave if that's what they wanted to do, or they could work the hours back, or they could take unpaid leave as an option. You could adjust their start and finish times. If they had on-site meetings, you could cancel those in-person meetings or postpone them is probably a better word there, and move the meetings for non-essential. So that would be really important. So for those that can work from home in times like these where they've no fuel, you should allow that and facilitate that. But more, I suppose, interesting would be if employees, we had some calls from clients and people where employees were calling up, say yesterday or the other day, and they were protesting and they weren't coming to work in the previous days. So that is not okay. So an employee can't just come to work and not come to work. They're breaking their terms and conditions of employment if they are not to turn up to work. It would not, in that case where we had the last day, say when someone didn't turn up to work, it's not an official strike, it's an unofficial wildcat strike. So they're breaking the terms and conditions by not attending work if it was due to striking. So it's really important that employees are aware of that and that you as employers are aware of that as well. So they'd be breaking a number of policies and procedures. Just to name a few would be their attendance, they're not coming to work, their absence policy, annual leave. They might say, well, I'm not coming to work because there's a protest on and I'll take a day's annual leave. They're in breach of their annual leave policy because most policies would require a week or 2 weeks notice to take an odd day off. So they're in breach of that. The sick leave I have in here because an employee might call in sick, for example. A few days ago, they might have called in sick to you and said they called in sick and then it turned out that they were protesting. And if that is the case, then they're not sick and they have not sent you in a cert, or maybe they did send in a cert, but if you have proof or you are aware that they were not actually sick, then you can take action in line with your disciplinary procedure. I have social media in here as well. If you just want to go back on social media there, because you have to ensure you have that policy and that staff are aware of this also. If you have employees out, for example, or they're at a protest and there's nothing wrong with all that, just to say if people want to protest, that's no problem. But it will be important that people are aware not to bring the company name into disrepute and to not be having disparaging remarks that can reflect negatively on the company. Because It would be in social media policies that they have to be aware of that at all times. And if they do such things, that they can be subject to disciplinary action. I was reading a case recently where an employee was off on sick leave, and she posted on her Facebook she posted on a private Facebook account that she said she made discriminatory comments. And a member of the public rang up the practice and said that this employee of theirs had done that. They rang the employee at home when she was on certified sick leave on the Friday and told her that she had to take it down. She did not take it down, but on the few days later, I think it was on the Monday, she was summarily dismissed. So they dismissed her. It went to the WRC and they did find in favour of the employee, but it was the social media aspect is one part of it, but the reason that the employer lost is because they didn't follow any procedures. And they didn't invite her to the meeting, and they didn't give her a chance to respond, and they didn't allow her the rules of natural justice. So for that reason, the employer lost the case. But in relation to the social media aspect of it, the WRC noted that it's so important that you have that policy in place, that employees are aware of it, and that they cannot be making remarks that bring the company name into negative capacity in the wider public area. But in that case, the employer did not show that they lost money as a result of it, or that it negatively impacted on their company. So that was just a point that the WRC also made in relation to that. But it was an interesting case. And then also just need to ensure that you have policies and procedures in place. And as I mentioned before, you can use the disciplinary procedure if staff are breaking their terms and conditions of employment by not attending work in line with their contract. Just moving on then so the practical tips for employers in this regard would be reasonable and flexible where possible. Communicate expectations clearly to employees. Ask employees to explore all reasonable travel options and consider temporary flexibility such as later start times, remote working, and shift adjustments. So it's just important to have all that. And then the best practice approach will be to apply decisions consistently across employees. So don't be allowing one employee to come in late or not come on at all and work remotely, and then you're taking an unpaid leave day off the other employee, because they will talk, and that is unfair. Keep a record of arrangements agreed, and take a long-term view of employee relations and show understanding of genuine difficulties. Also, as Damien has mentioned before, and as you're aware, we have HR Buddy Manager, which is our software system. And in that, you will be able to record days. Obviously, it's got clocking in, clocking out, it's got attendance, annual leave days. But if there is unauthorized leave or unpaid leave, it can be noted on the system that. So it's important to have these records, because I know a lot of people have their manual sheets where they just sign in and out, but it's good to have that record and that note there that you can refer to. So, and as I said at the start, there is no statutory entitlement to paid leave where employees cannot attend due to travel and travel disruptions. So any paid arrangement is at the employer's discretion. So just moving on to the next few slides. Pension, there always seems to be some update in some shape or form in relation to the auto-enrolment, but this is just saying that in February the department was highlighting significant process in relation to it, and it was just saying basically here it's saying 763,000 employees working for nearly 104,000 employers have now been automatically enrolled, and this is just saying that a total of over 60 million of contributions have already been invested. And then the last bit of it is just saying that NIRSA, who regulates and operates My Future Fund, provides support. They've got over 40,000 queries along the way. So I suppose it's just a little update to let you know that it is going well, and that people are in touch with them and registered. So just moving on then, there's always an update each month on the EU Pay Transparency Directive. I'll keep this brief, but this is an ongoing open live issue. And we are waiting, as is everybody, for updates from the government in relation to it. But the directive was due to be incorporated into law by the 7th of June. And so the purpose of the directive, as everyone knows, it's to promote equal pay for equal work and reduce the gender pay gap. So in March, the Department of Equality acknowledged that the required measures and supporting tools to be implemented by the government by the 7th of June are not going to be completed by the deadline. So there's a number of areas in relation to the EU pay transparency that have to be incorporated. And they're saying now that there's going to be a delay. It has been speculated for some time that it's going to be on a phase basis. We're still awaiting feedback in relation to what the areas are going to be. But the department has advised that employers will not be penalised for having all the elements of the directive completed by June deadline. But if you want to move on, Colin, they are saying that it's going to be on a phase basis, but they do believe that on a phase basis, the likely changes that are firstly going to be introduced are concerning pre-employment recruitment and the salary transparency obligations. So number one, what it is believed to be will be providing candidates the information on the pay levels or the pay ranges in advance of employment. So that will be when you're advertising by the 7th of June, by that date, when you're advertising, you're going to have to outline what the salary is for the role or what the salary range will be. And then the second point that is likely to be the first two parts that are going to be phased in is prohibiting employers from asking candidates questions about their pay history at interview. So we all know that that's one of the areas. So not asking candidates about their previous earnings. So in March, I think it was the 26th of March, the EU published guidance on how employers should need to prepare and compare roles, say for the equal pay. So Ireland is now expected to finalise and release its own tools with employer workshops planned so I suppose from now to July to help organisations prepare. So basically the EU has published its guidance and now the department is currently reviewing that and is going to come up with workshops and we also will be awaiting all that information and we will be rolling out, and even for some of our clients, we're doing EU pay transparency presentations as well on this to help employers prepare. So I suppose it's important that employers continue to prepare for the directive as if it was coming in. I suppose do as much as you can. Preparation is key. And then is there one more there, Colin, or... I think, oh yes, this is just briefly, I'm aware of the time there. So, but this is just a case and it's relevant to the performance management section that Damien discussed earlier. So was it about, it shows about, I suppose, how mishandling a performance improvement plan can result in legal issues for employers. But this was an employee and she had just over 1 year's service and she was told that she had to commence a PIP. This was despite any regular reviews or performance management having taken place. So after 1 week of being on the PIP, so bear in mind, PIPs can be 30, 60, 90 days. It depends on your policy or the individual company, but after 1 week being on the PIP, which was already vague and it had unclear goals outlined in it, she was told that she would be offered a package from the company, an exit package, and she was told that she would be exited from the company regardless of whether she accepted it or not. So this obviously resulted in her leaving the company and she ended up taking a constructive dismissal case, and the WRC found that she was constructively dismissed and she won the case and the employer had to pay her just under €18,000. So I suppose this is a case to show that you can do PIPs, you can enforce them, you can do that, but they have to be done properly and in line with policies and procedures. And should you not, it can result in significant legal issues for companies. So as it says there, the lesson for employers is clear. It must always be, genuine. It has to be genuine and has to be there to help improvement. Okay, so thanks so much. I think that's my section done.
Thanks so much, Breach. And I guess it's clear there's a lot of complexity and change in the space of HR. I guess one point that you touched on a lot of policies and procedures that businesses need to have in place there. So I guess what I took from that is that if an organization doesn't have policies in place or maybe they haven't been updated in a while, that we're available to assist there in terms of reviewing or rolling out any policies, procedures to provide clarity and so on to employees. Look, we've covered a lot of information this morning. There's actually a lot of questions coming in there on the Q&A. and we'd like to touch on as many of those as we can this morning. We'll share the slides and so on, so that hopefully that'll be a useful resource to all attendees. But I just wanted to touch on, I guess, look, a main theme from this morning's discussion has been looking after employees with empathy, prioritizing their development and their well-being and so on. And that's something that HR Buddy also can assist you with in terms of, I guess, the main time and streamlining processes and so on. But just what I wanted to briefly touch on this morning is in terms of and this was glad to say this was announced recently, is that the strategic partnership with Irish Life. So I'm briefly just showing you the dashboard here, and I've got into the training tab. So what's new this month is that yes, we have our strategic partnership with between HR Buddy and Irish Life. You'll see that the training tab here is fully customizable. We've added two new modules to the platform, which were the importance of emotions and well-being training. I'm just gonna, as an example, I'm just gonna assign it to myself here. So within the training tab, what you can actually do is you can assign training to different employees, set a deadline, and you can see here, I'll just go into my own assignment tab, and you can see that the training is waiting for me inside in the tab. Then I can log in. Then it's a mobile first platform, so I can log in. Then I can complete the training myself. The first one that's been added there this month is a men's health initiative, which looked very important, and we'll be rolling out and improving and updating the library in conjunction with Irish Life over the next few weeks. And also here as well, we have the importance of emotions training. So people can be assigned that. Again, speaking to the importance of self-awareness, self-reflection, creating the positive mindset within the organization, which is particularly relevant to today's discussion. So what you can see within the HR Buddy platform is that yeah, I guess I'm a bit biased in terms of the training development is probably my own personal favorite in the different features that are within there. Why is that important? Because it can help the business to build a well-being culture within the organization. It can empower managers in terms of giving them the tools they need to deal with some of the more difficult items that they'll be facing as managers within the business. Give them confidence in terms of the toolkit for dealing with issues and in real time. Practical support is offered within the platform in terms of this is real evidence-based training that's being delivered in conjunction with Irish Life. It's added to the platform for all users. And look, the research is clear that focusing on and investing in well-being within your team does have return on investment and payoffs in terms of driving behavior improvements, increasing resilience and positive mindsets within the business. So those are features, and that's training that's been added for all users within the HR Buddy platform, in addition to the other benefits and tabs that are available in terms of contracts can be developed, issued, and signed off within the platform, reducing error. You have the reporting tab. You have the time and attendance as we've discussed today. Policies and procedures can be added and so on within the system as well. So yeah, we've covered a huge amount today. We will issue the slides, and the recording will be available. Look, there's a lot there in there in terms of tools and support that are available for business owners and managers. In terms of the Q&A,
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
have a few questions there, Colin. So we'll run through them
Yeah.
before we finish. I think we still have time, which is good. And if you have any other question, get it in quickly because we're nearly out of time. One question is, what if there was a red weather warning and you delayed start for safety? Can you ask employee to make up time? The short answer is yes. So how do you do this right? So let's say a red weather warning. The first key thing is safety. Safety is paramount, and you protect your workers. You may keep the business closed and they don't come to work. That is absolutely the right thing to do. Otherwise, you may be liable. One key point is have a policy. have an adverse weather policy or an extreme weather policy so that you and your staff are not confused about what happens in such an event. Okay. And there always seems to be confusion. So as Breach would have gone through with when people can't attend work and travel and the fuel disruption there over the last few days, it's very similar to the weather events. I suppose there's three key things to think about. If there's disruption, you still want your business to run. You don't want your bottom line impacted. So there's the business. There's the worker who you need to keep safe or can get to work, but you don't want their pay to be impacted, and that's taking the long-term view, I suppose, whereby you have to cancel work because of a red weather warning, but they're down 20% in their paycheck next week. It doesn't create a very good employment relationship, so you need to think of that as well. And you need to think of your customer who or client who isn't getting their service or their product, and you want to keep all three parties happy. And how do you do that? Have a policy in place which is very clear what happens. And so if you leave that worker off, which is the right thing to do with regards to health and safety, and that's paramount. But now, how do you work around it? So, can you afford annual leave, time in lieu? Can you reorganize work? So, one of the commonsensical approaches would be a delivery company during a red weather warning on a Wednesday organised their drivers who were available on Saturday to make up the delivery. So the communicate to the customer there was maybe a bit of a delay or kind of a 24-hour backlog in deliveries, but by the end of the week, the customer had their goods and products. The bottom line wasn't impacted. All their staff had full pay next week, and everybody was kept safe during the red warning. So that's the kind of commonsensical approach. What we see all the time in these weather events, and indeed it's the same as Bree just went through with the travel disruption over the last week, is confusion about what's right, what's wrong. So having a policy in place saves you from that. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Another question there is, recruitment agencies often include a field asking for a candidate's previous salary in their applications. Is this something that should no longer be asked in phase 1 of the EU Pay Transparency Directive? Okay, so when we get the full concrete details, and this is ongoing, this is important, keep watching out for the information as this is coming out in the phases and how exactly that EU directive is going to be transposed into Irish law. Okay, that's important. Okay, for the moment, it would seem correct to say that recruitment agencies could not and should not have that field asking for the candidate's previous salary. Okay, I suppose if you want to think about it, if you're recruiting in-house, you're the employer recruiting, you can't ask that question as an employer. The recruitment agency can't, because they're working for the employer. You would have it thrown at you that you pass that information on to the employer and so on. So you're included in this as well. Okay. Again, I hope that answers that question. But I'm also saying keep an eye for the finer detail, and we'll be doing this on our webinars. We'll be putting it up on our socials. Thanks for the questions this morning. Thanks for attending. And look, if you need help with HR support, HR outsourcing, employment documentations, contracts, handbooks, if you want to explore HR Buddy Manager, get a demo or a free trial of that and see how it can help you. If you need training in any of the areas such as the EU Transparency Directive coming in, and want a better understanding of that, or if you're considering line manager training, or if you're considering payroll outsourcing, feel free to get in touch with the team here at HR Buddy anytime. And someone else just said thanks, so it wasn't a question. So thank you. We're done, Colin. If you want to wrap it up, thanks everyone.
Yeah, and the questions do come in all the time about training. I suppose you've stirred up a lot of different topics there in terms of policies, procedures, performance management, how to do that correctly, and so on. And training can be tailored and bespoke to the exact needs of the organization. So there's a link there on the screen if you want to. That'll take you direct to our contact page, or drop us a line in any of the contact details there, and we can advise you in terms of how we can support you from a HR and employment law perspective. So thanks so much for joining us this morning, and we'll send out all the resources and slides and so on. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye.